Something like that. Let's see if I can play that again and get it a little closer. It's getting worse. Hey everybody, I'm just working on this etude that I wrote actually a couple years ago. I was dusting it off, and I'm gonna just keep working on it until folks have some questions. So chime on in whenever you have a question, or just even something you want to share that's not a question. There it is. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll go back to it again if there's some downtime between questions. Still no questions. Who all is here? Say hello. Don't be shy. There's got to be a better way to play that. Wow, greetings from Russia. Wow, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Wow, Rafał from Poland. Hey, Rafał, how you doing? How do you approach guitar without using shapes and patterns? That's from Ben. Ben, are you talking about this specific piece that I'm fumbling my way through, or is that a general question? How to approach the guitar without shapes and patterns? Let me know if you mean this particular piece or uh, more generally. Wow, Poland. Huh. I was supposed to go to Poland um, in December on tour, and it didn't happen. I was so disappointed. Uh, I was supposed to be on tour with Liz Wright, and we were going to play in, uh, I can't pronounce it, Warsaw, in a venue called the White Stork Synagogue. And I was really bummed out that we didn't get to the whole tour didn't happen, but specifically, I have friends in Poland that I wanted to visit. So, okay. Ben says either. Okay. Well, in this, let's see, in this particular piece, I am using some shapes and patterns. They're just not maybe the most familiar ones. A lot of it is because I'm breaking familiar patterns and shapes apart intentionally so that they don't sound so familiar, I guess. So like this first bar, this is a A13 voicing. You can play it this way or this way. So A, G, B, C sharp, F sharp. Not unusual, I don't think. But I tried to make it a little more surprising just by breaking it up. So the rhythm is 2, 3, 4. And then, so this is a 12 bar blues with some substitutions. I wanted to go to the 4 chord, D7, in the second bar. But again, I wanted to break it up. So I took this D9 with a flat 5 or sharp 11, you could say. And again, I broke it up. So it doesn't sound like this grip, but more is happening. So from the beginning, 2, 3, 4. And then I want to make a quick 2-5 to get back to A. So B minor 7, E7. Again, instead of going grip, grip, and using familiar stuff, I did a counterpoint thing. So that's this. And then in the fourth measure of A, I wanted to have kind of an A7 with some tension on it. So I used this lick. This is straight out of a Jimmy Weibel etude. I just lifted it. He usually does it in the etude that it comes from, that's in F. So that's like a C7 flat 5 to set up F. So I just used that. And then now I'm on bar 5, so this would be D7. Again, I'm just breaking it up. Like this isn't that weird. So it's like F sharp and D with the G sharp on the afterbeat. So 1 and this is just like the upper part of D7. Still going up. This is, I guess guess you could say kind of a surround. F major 7. The shape is F major 7, but it's really, in my mind, a D minor 7 chord. So we've gone from D7 in bar 5 of a blues. This would be like D minor 7, and then back to A. And then this descending 2-5 thing. So I'm thinking to get to the 2 chord. But again, I break this up so it doesn't sound so expected. That's E flat minor 7, A7, D minor 7, flat 5, all broken up, C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7. I don't know if that's obvious by just watching my hands, but one more time. A, E flat minor 7, D minor 7, flat 5, C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, C minor 7, F7. I mean, this is all really very intentionally in the style of Jimmy Weibel. I wrote this blues as a like kind of a tribute to him. So this F7 chord, it's just F7 flat 5, but instead of playing it, I break it up on non-adjacent strings. So F, E flat, B, A, E flat, C, A, G, and now we're ready for 2-5. And again, this same lick I played, that was up here before, now it's here. A, C7, broken, B flat, so Ben, I don't know if that's helpful, but a lot of what I'm doing is inspired by Jimmy Weibel. I don't know if you know him, but these are a couple of his books. This one is out of print, very hard to find, but if you find it, get it. And it's full of kind of exercises like that where everything's kind of broken up into counterpoint. Looks like that. It's got diagrams and notation, no tab, but I don't think you would need it because he writes all the fingerings and he makes it clear. This is another book of his that I like. Or you could just listen to him if you find him on YouTube or wherever, and that would inform. So that's one way that I avoid shapes and patterns. Another way that I avoid shapes and patterns is improvising counterpoint through a 12-bar blues. This is an exercise that my friend Ken Rosser showed me years ago. I say improvising counterpoint, really just whole notes. I'm not looking for melodies at the moment, but just, let's say we're in C. So 1, 2, 3, 4. C, bar 1, F, bar 2, back to C, F, maybe F minor, C, but with just some tension because I heard it, and then this is D minor 7, G 5, C9. I'll do a turnaround. So I'm just trying to play something melodic on the upper voice, but just moving in whole notes. And then something colorful on the bottom to help give a sense of what chord is meant to be played. So depending on what's on top, I might put the third or the 7 of that chord on the bottom, or the root on the bottom, or something like that. So that's another way that I find that helps me break out of familiar patterns and grips and stuff. One other thing, just from Jimmy Weibel, if you're familiar with chord scales, like this is a thing that guitar players practice sometimes. You know, that's all kind of standard stuff, but Jimmy would have me do it kind of broken, so non-adjacent string pairs. So we're still using familiar shapes. But it just gives it a more surprising sound, hopefully. Ben, was that helpful? I hope so. Rafal says, could you recommend any practice routines to speed up a right hand and or coordination for right hand, left hand? Rafal, tell me a little bit more specifically. Are you playing with a pick? Are you playing finger style? And then also just like what kinds of things are you into? Are you like talking about really like rock stuff or jazz stuff, or just tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to get to, and what you're curious about. I'm going to try to play this Weibel blues again. Still needs work. Cool, Ben. I'm glad that was helpful. Well, Rafael, I'm still waiting to see if you can give me a little bit more information about what you're after. Yes. Hey, man, how are you? Okay, Rafael, and I hope I'm saying that right. You're into jazz, so playing with the picks. Let me read this again. Could you recommend any practice routines to speed up a right hand and or coordination for right and left hand? Um, well, what would I do? I think if you're into jazz, I would one thing I would do is I would transcribe some solos or uh, if not even solos, just heads like Charlie Parker, heads, Confirmation, Donna Lee, um, Yardbird Suite, Scrapple from the Apple, things like that. So that you're working on, when you're doing picking, you're working on specific vocabulary. One thing I find is that, students might get really good with the pick and the right and left hand coordination when we're just playing scales, because that's a thing that a lot of people practice. But then when it comes time to make music, we're not just playing scales. We're playing real phrases that have beginnings and middles and endings and landing points. How you land a phrase, um, is so important in jazz, in any music really, but since we're talking about jazz. So, what I would do is really get into some specific vocabulary, whether it's any of the aforementioned stuff, like jazz, the bebop heads, or just a lick that you learn to play. Um, that would be the main thing that I would do when you're practicing at home with a pick, is really work on specific stuff like that. Um, not just scales and arpeggios. Unless you want your improvisation to be full of scales and arpeggios, in which case, then yeah, you should practice that stuff too. Um, Another thing is going to be about some self-diagnosis, which is, if you're not already, you may be doing this already, but if you're not already doing this, um, record yourself playing, improvising. Just find a backing track on YouTube, or use iReal Pro or whatever, and make a little video of yourself, um, playing along, and do your best to forget that you're recording, and just play, and then go back and watch what you're doing, and see where the specific places are that you're getting hung up. It might be a general thing that you need to work on, but it also could be some really specific, one or two things that you're doing that you might just not be aware of, um, right now. And then you could work on just fixing those couple of things, instead of, you know, changing your whole practice routine, and maybe getting at the root of the problem. Try to figure out real specifically, is it when you change from string to string? Is it, uh, when you try to get bluesy? Is it when you try to mix rhythms between eighth notes and triplets? Or, when are the problems arising? And then see if you can find some stuff to practice that isolates those particular things. That's what I would recommend. Troy House, could you recommend some more voicings for C minor 9 besides the obvious two mostly used? Sure. So I assume you mean that's a pretty obvious C minor 9 voicing, right? And then there's one up here that people play a lot. You could also play this, kind of related to that. So those are the obvious ones. One that I like is this. So playing C, B flat, D, E flat. So that's nice because it's got the 2 and the 9 right next to each other. Another one that has the 2 and the 3 next to each other would be this. So playing C, D, E flat, G. After that, the next place I would look is for some E flat major 7 voicings, which they don't have C in them, but assuming you've got a bass player or somebody else handling the low end, You could play in, because like if you think of this C minor 9, here's the root. If you just look at this upper part, it's just an E flat major 7 drop 2 voicing. So you could really use any of those. And as long as you've got somebody playing the low C, or if you can hear it in your imagination. You could also play E flat major 9 and you use the 2 instead of the 3. So like this sound. So that's C minor 9, but it's also got the 11 in it. So I think of that as E flat major 7 with 2 instead of 3, the 2 of E flat, I mean. So let's see. I'm thinking how we could move that around. So it's basically a B flat triad with E flat in it. So we could play. I should know these by heart, but I don't. Is that right? Yeah, that'll work. So again, that's a. So, I should know these by heart. It's so silly. Is that one? Oh, here's one. There we go. So that's. I guess you could also think of this as a B flat triad over E flat. So here's that same idea: B flat triad over E flat. Here's a B flat triad over E flat. You could have a spread triad, B flat over E flat, and that would be a C minor 7 voicing. So those are all rootless voicings, which you have to get into pretty quickly if you want to look for interesting things, because otherwise you're kind of stuck with this and this. But if you can let go of the root, then you get a lot of other possibilities. Here's one that I like. It's kind of a pet voicing of mine: B flat, E flat, F, D. Here's one more. This is, like I showed you, this is the B flat triad over E flat. You could also put G under that. That's a nice sound. Yeah, those are some ideas. Oh, yes, I knew you'd have an idea. What do you got? 13, 10. Yeah. Right, you beat me to it. Okay. Do I like Mark Ribot and have we met? Yes, I like Mark Ribot a lot. In particular, I like his record, Mark Ribot y Los Cubanos Postizos. That's a huge record for me. I've liked him also on, Tom Waits records and Elvis Costello records and lots of records as a side guy. I've seen him play solo guitar a couple of times. One really memorable night at a club in New York. It's not around anymore, but it was called Tonic, and I saw him there in 2000, I think, maybe 2001. He was playing solo electric guitar, and it was in the middle of summertime. It was so hot. And he wanted to play very quietly, so he insisted that the club turn off the air conditioning. And so it was just sweltering in there, and it was an unforgettable show. I've also seen him play with his ceramic dog, group, and I saw him, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago at Poisson Rouge. It's a club in New York, and he was playing with a project called the Young Philadelphians. So yeah, I like Mark Ribot a lot. I only met him once, well, twice. I once ran into him just on the street and said hey. And also, there used to be a little guitar shop in New York in the East Village. It was called Mojo Guitar. And one day I was in there playing some Django Reinhardt tunes on the guitar. And he was there, and we wound up playing a couple of Django tunes together. It was really fun. No surprise, he knows that music really well. Yeah, that's all I can say about Mark Ribot. Troy, I'm glad that was helpful. There's a neat book, Troy, I'll recommend if you haven't seen it already. It's called Mel Bay's Complete Book of Voicings, Theory, and Harmony, or something like that. The author is Brett Wilmot. And that's a really good book for voicings, mostly along the lines of what I was showing you with upper structure stuff. So when the chord is C minor 7 or C minor 9, most of the time he's going to show you a voicing that doesn't have a C in it, but it's going to be some upper structure, E flat major 7, E flat major 9, that kind of thing. So that might be a cool book to check out. Jared, I've always been confused on how to pick chord augmentations to achieve a soul R&B sound. Well, the ones that I usually pick are the ones that come out of pentatonics, whether we're talking major or minor. So if we're on A, so instead of just playing A, if you want to be careful when you said augmentation, augmented has a specific meaning in music, which is the sharp 5, but I don't think that's what you're asking. You're talking about just embellishments or how to decorate the chord, if I understand properly. So the notes that I would use on major are major triad has 3 notes, root 3, 5, and a major pentatonic has 2 more notes. It has the 6 and it has the 9 or the 2. So I might use those as embellishments. So that's 1, 2, 1. Here's 5, 6, 5. It can be down at the bottom of the voice or in the middle or on top. That's 5 moving to 6. Here's 1 moving to 2. You can also go 3, 4, 3. That's not in the pentatonic. There's no 4 in major pentatonic, but it's an idiomatic thing that people do. But this major pentatonic sound is really cool. You can also get like that kind of sound. That's going 1 up to 2 and 5 up to 6 at the same time. And this is 5 up to 6 and 2 up to 3. So you have all of that, which comes right out of A major pentatonic. So another thing that I would do sometimes would be to alternate between on a major. I'll get to minor chord. I know you're probably tired of the major sound already, but on the major chord, I might go. I'll get to minor in a moment. Between the 1 and the 2, so A major, B minor. A minor shape, B minor shape, A shape, B minor shape, A shape, B minor shape, and then all the decorative stuff that could go with that. So that's stuff that I use in minor, kind of the same idea. You'd have this minor, A minor, and then the notes that you could add that come from the pentatonic are the 4 and the flat 7. So you'd have so I'm thinking A minor, bringing 7 up to root in any inversion. You could have the 4 go back down to 3. Or rather, and then not from pentatonic, but just a nice tone for some color is the 9. You can even think about like A minor pentatonic on each string and try to make chords that way. No, that's not right. There it is. See what I mean? Like, I'm just thinking A minor pentatonic. And putting all 3 strings together. So I don't know if that's an authentic R&B soul guitar thing, but it's just a sound that I like, and maybe it is. I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, sounding Wolfpacky. That's not bad. I like those guys. Great guitar playing in Wolfpack. You know, obviously other people in the band get a lot of attention, like Joe Dart, the bass player, and Theo is a great drummer, and the arrangements, the way everything hangs together. But Jack Stratton, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Jack Stratton did a video a while back about 3 of his favorite guitar players. You might want to go back and watch that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, Holy Trinities. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. John Ware, tritone substitution. Could you give examples of how that is used, please? Sure. Let's say you're playing a blues in G. And when you Well, let's see. I'll do some more stuff on that, but let's just get to the end of the blues. I'll fill in the gaps in the middle. So here's the first chord, and then in measure 12, you'd have this turnaround. You have a D7 chord, and that's going to get us back to the G. So that D7 chord, at the core of it are two really important notes: the third of the D, that's F sharp, and the flat 7 of D, that's C natural. So that's kind of the stuff that makes D7 sound like D7. Otherwise, it would just be a D major chord. But with that C natural in it, we've got this kind of these two notes that really want to settle into something, and that's the most likely place what I just did. So the 7 C goes down a half step, and the F sharp, the third, goes up, and you wind up with the root and third of G. So G, D7, back to G, because you get this. So that's just the fundamental 5-1 thing. So here's where tritone substitution comes in. That third and flat 7 of the D7, amazingly, is also the third and 7 of another dominant chord, but with the third and 7 roles being reversed. So here, F sharp and C are respectively the third and flat 7 of D, but they are also the flat 7 and third of A flat, if you think of this F sharp as G flat. So these two chords, really, they sound pretty different, but the only note that I'm changing is the bottom note. If I don't play the bottom note, you can see it's the same. And then when I add the bass note, they sound totally different, but they're 2/3 of the notes I'm playing are exactly the same. So check it out. So now I'm wrapping up the 12-bar blues. So that chord there, A flat 7, I put a flat 5 on it just because I like that sound. You could keep it real simple. So I play that as a substitute for D7. So that's one place you could use it, just in anytime you have a 5 chord, something where you're resolving 5 to 1, instead of playing the 5 chord, you could play a tritone substitution for it. And how do you remember what the substitution is without doing all the math? The substitution itself is a tritone away. So D, you substitute A flat 7. E, you would substitute B flat 7, or vice versa. F sharp, say, you would substitute C7, or vice versa. For C7, you'd substitute F sharp. So it's this shape, the YYZ shape. This part in the middle is a tritone, the third and the 7th, and the two possible bass notes are also a tritone apart. So that's why it's called tritone substitution. A more kind of complex application would be, let's say you had a turnaround G at the end of the blues. You went like B minor 7, E7, A minor 7, D7. We could do tritone subs for either of these dominant chords. So we could go B minor 7, B flat 7, A minor 7, D7. Or we could go B minor 7, B flat 7, A minor 7, A flat 7 as substitute for D. So here it is without substitutions. Here it is with both substitutions. Here it is just with one substitution. Here it is with just the other substitution. So now, in a 12-bar blues, this is a substitute for the 1 right before we go to the 4. I wouldn't do a tritone sub for the 4. You can, but mostly we want to use tritone substitution when things are resolving by a fourth. So when G7 goes to C, the tritone sub works great. But when C7 is going back to G, it's a cool sound. It's just less commonly used. And again, that was another tritone substitution. Instead of going 2, 5 to 4, I went 2, 5, but tritone sub, 4. And now we would normally go to E7, because that's the 5 of the 2. But instead of E flat 7, I'm going to go to B flat 7. 2 chord, A flat 7 as a substitute for D7. So let me think of maybe another example from like an actual tune. So like if we play All the Things You Are, normally people play F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. So since that moves by fourth, we could substitute A7. We could use the tritone sub, and so we could have A7 instead of E flat 7. So that would sound like this. Cool. And now normally we have G7 here, but we could make that D flat 7. Yeah. So C minor, F, and instead of B flat 7, we could have E7. A flat 7. So yeah, you could do it on a blues, you could do it on a jazz standard. I think the first way to get into it is just to like do it everywhere. Like don't be too concerned about good taste. Just kind of force it until you get used to the sound, and then maybe you can kind of ease off it a little bit. Sure, John, I'm glad that was helpful. Let's see, any other questions? We're almost done. I usually try to keep this to an hour. So if you have maybe one last question, I'll answer it. I want to thank everybody for dropping by and asking really good questions. I also want to mention, if you want to learn more stuff, you can always find a lot of lessons and interviews and music playlists and all that kind of resources on my Patreon. It's guitartipspro.com. Hope you'll check it out, guitartipspro.com. Jens, who's hanging out here, also is on Patreon. You might know him already from YouTube. He's got an incredible Patreon channel, so follow him here or check him out there. I too late to ask a question? Go for it. What's your question? Also, there's a question already on the board here. Alan Gallant says, anticipating the next chord while soloing. Yes, always. I don't really have a great strategy for how to do that, except just do it. Like make that your habit. You should never be surprised by the next chord, unless you're in a situation where you just literally don't know the song, or it's being made up on the spot by some kind of collective improvisation. But if you're playing a song that you know, a jazz standard or any kind of song, really, the chords aren't going to change. The they are what they are, and so the more you look ahead, the better. So you're always thinking about landing. You can't react to a chord. You need to play into the chord. So I guess, okay, I said I don't have an exercise other than just mentally doing it, but you could, if you're good at writing stuff down, you could write some lines that do that, like, write out a couple of lines where you, like, writing on paper is like improvising in very, very slow motion, because you can spend a whole minute on each note, or 5 minutes on each note, or whatever you need. So write out some lines that intentionally do that. Uh, and if you're not good at writing out music, you could still just do this on the guitar and memorize the lines. The being musically literate, it isn't shouldn't be a barrier to doing this. But I like to write stuff down so I can come back to it later, and so I can analyze it, see what works and what doesn't. But yeah, basically always be anticipating the next chord, the chord that's happening. Uh, as often as not, you can ignore the chord that is happening now, if as long as you play into the next chord. That's really your job. Uh, Alan, good luck with that. Come back next week and let me know how that goes. Okay, how can I start doing self-accompaniment things? It seems so difficult. I don't know what to begin with. I mean, chord melody stuff, not accompanying for singing. Um, that's a good question. Do you know shell voicings? Those are voicings with roots, threes, and sevens, and nothing else. Do you know those kind of voicings already? See if I can find this. Because I'll play you through. I ask if you know. Okay, so one thing, and you want to know your shell voicings. There's lots of places you can find them. If you don't mind a little self promotion, I'll mention I have a book called Shell Chords. You can find it on Bandcamp. Um, if you go to bandcamp.com, and you can find me there, Adam Levy. I have a book on shell voicings, and you'd want to get that book. That's really useful. So shell voicings just have root, three, and seven. Sometimes it's from the bottom to the top, root, seven, three. Sometimes it's root, three, seven. It could be over here. And the big idea is that the roots of the chords almost always are going to be on strings 5 or 6. The thirds and the sevenths are going to be in the middle. And then any melodic information or chord extensions will be on the top. So I really think of the guitar in kind of 3 tiers that way. So check that book out. Come back next week or some other Wednesday when I'm here, and let me know how it goes. If you want to send me a direct message, my email is adam@adamlevy.com, and I'll be glad to help you if I can. Another thing that you could do that is really helpful is not worry even about chord voicings, but just play the melody and the root of the chord. Like, this is an arrangement that I was working on for my Patreon. but beautiful. It's a jazz standard. So even without thinking about chords, you could just play. And that would be a great place to start. Really would be a great place to start, just to be able to do that. And then once you can do that, you can fill in the rest with some shell voicings. So like, so I'm just going to fill in the third and the seventh. So it's a G major 7 chord. If you know this tune, it's called But Beautiful. It's in the real book. So I'm playing the root and the melody, and I'm just adding the third and seventh. So now here's B minor 7 flat 5. I'm going to add the third and seventh. And then here's the third and seventh of E7. And again, this is all happening on these middle 2 strings. So this is an A minor 7 chord. So I'm just going to fill in the third and the seventh. Same idea. Root 3 7. Again, here's the melody, here's the bass line, here's the third and the seventh. Let's see. That would be a shell voicing. And so on. Sometimes if the melody note is the third or the seventh, you might want to make a different choice because you might not want to double those notes in the melody and in the shell. But that's just that would be where I would start. Pick a tune that you want to work on. Start with a ballad. Don't try to do anything too fast or fancy. Start with a ballad. Um, Play the melody and the bass notes, and then fill it in with shell voicings. And that would be a great place to start. And then when you have a place where it rests, you can play a little fill. Or just, or now I'm getting a little fancier. Something like that. So try that out and let me know how it goes. Shell chords are the way to get started if you're just starting out. Okay, next week I can't be here Wednesday of next week, so I'll either do Tuesday or Thursday. If you subscribe to this channel, you should be able to find it. Again, please check out my Patreon. I really, there's tons of lessons there about all kinds of practical stuff and explorative stuff and fundamental stuff and philosophy, musical philosophy stuff. It's guitartipspro.com. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have a really great day. Take good care.